Hi guys, it's Nicole. So as many of you may already know, I had gastric bypass surgery. Let's see, it's now been almost 15 months ago. I've lost over 100 pounds, between 100 and 110 pounds down, so that's good. Gastric bypass surgery was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Of course, it's a very personal decision as to whether it's right for you or not, but it isn't without its speed bumps. And there have been a lot of embarrassing moments that I've had to push through after having this surgery. And so I thought that I would just get brave and tell you guys about some of the embarrassing things that I've endured since having my surgery. I'm going to get through the really embarrassing ones right up front. So please pardon my cheeks if they turn bright red, because some of them are very embarrassing and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be sharing these, but oh well, I'm going to share them anyway, because my whole purpose for this channel is to educate people and to let you know through my experiences how things have gone, what you can potentially expect. But yeah, so hopefully this information is helpful. It's okay if you also find it very entertaining and you laugh at it, because yeah, some of the stuff's pretty funny. Okay, so there are 13 things that I'm going to talk about that have caused me embarrassment as a result of my gastric bypass surgery. The first one, we're just going to get it out of the way. Pooping. Let's talk about pooping. Everyone does it, right? Before surgery, I was a very regular girl. In fact, too regular at times. I had problems with diarrhea before the surgery, and I had read, and researched so much about the surgery, and a lot of the complications were diarrhea, and I thought, oh, this is only going to get worse after the surgery. Ugh. Well, I mean, it didn't get worse, the diarrhea. That's pretty much resolved. I very rarely have any kinds of problems with that. But the pendulum has swung way too far in the opposite direction, and I have a lot of problems with constipation. So, my first Christmas after having gastric bypass surgery. So I had my gastric bypass surgery October 27th of 2022. So the first Christmas was less than 2 months after, but I had just started on solid foods or regular foods. At 6 weeks, my doctor had progressed me to eating foods that I could tolerate, but I wasn't able to eat much, and I was focusing really hard on protein, so I wasn't getting in a lot of fiber. I was getting all my water. I've always been really good about getting my water in, but it didn't help much. And for Christmas, I always had my family over, and I would make soups, and then we'd put out stuff to make sandwiches, and we just kind of have a soup and sandwich bar, and then I'd make like baked goods, and I did that again that year, just kind of hard because no one would be able to eat any of it, but it was fine. That's not even the point. But I hadn't gone to the bathroom in a few days, and I was feeling very uncomfortable, like in the lead up to Christmas. And then on Christmas Day, I was in really bad pain, so uncomfortable. I couldn't have eaten the food even if I tried. Like I couldn't eat anything. I was so backed up. And I was still trying to get my water in. It was even hard to get water in. And I was just kind of curled up on a ball, on the couch while my family was eating and having fun in the kitchen. And they would, get concerned and come check on me. I'd be like, oh, I'm fine. You guys just continue on. But it was just, it was so embarrassing. My mom actually, they were considering taking me to the emergency room, but I was like, no, I'm not going to the emergency room on Christmas. I'm not ruining Christmas. But my mom went to Walgreens and bought an Enema. Never used an Enema in my life, but on Christmas I did. My family, they all left, and then my dogs, who were very concerned about me, they laid down on the floor next to me, and I used the Enema, and it took maybe 5 minutes, and it was very painful when things were starting to move, but move they did, and I cannot stress just how amazing it felt when things came out. Yeah, that was amazing. Christmas memories, right? Oh my goodness. Christmas 2022 will just live in infamy. But you know, I had a bowel impaction, is what that was called. I tried to relieve things in other ways before going the enema route, but the enema is what it took. I do want to stress with this embarrassing moment, even though it's like kind of, you know, I'm laughing about it now, and anytime you are not having bowel movements and you're in pain, you need to get it treated. Like if that enema wouldn't have worked, I needed to go to the emergency room. It's very serious when you have a bowel impaction. It can turn to a bowel obstruction, or if you could have a bowel obstruction, that could be the problem in the first place. So Lisa Marie Presley actually died a few weeks after this incident of mine, or a couple weeks. And she died from a bowel obstruction. She had had gastric bypass surgery. She had had the surgery years before, like I think 6 years before. And the adhesions, the scar tissue had just basically strangled her bowel. And she didn't seek help for it, and it killed her. So it's very important that when things are not moving along, that you get it taken care of, get some help. So just some advice there in the middle of this humor. So, I mean, I still struggle with constipation. I'm just really good now about making sure I get in fiber. Now that I can eat more, it's easier to make sure I'm eating vegetables and fruits, you know, foods that are high in fiber. If I sense that things are starting to slow down, I do take DocuState, which is a stool softener, just for a couple of days to make sure things keep moving. That's with the advice of my doctor. But I have had to use an enema 2 other times. I haven't had to use one in the past 6 months, but just like that first 6 months after the surgery, I used a total of 3 enemas. And yeah, kind of embarrassing. Glad I'm sharing it with you. Okay, the second embarrassing thing, actually this one is kind of more embarrassing than poop, but it's hemorrhoids. So yeah, I mean, it goes hand in hand with the straining related to constipation. So I have had hemorrhoids. I developed them, or realized I had them. I was driving to Moab to spend a few days hiking in the desert. And as I was driving, I was like, man, my rear end is very uncomfortable. What is going on? Yeah, I had hemorrhoids. So driving into Moab, I stopped at a store and got a bunch of different products. I didn't even really know what to buy. Like, I just kind of bought a bunch of stuff that said hemorrhoid relief on it. I think the Preparation H ointment is what healed things, but the Tux wipes were very helpful. Yeah, they resolved like within a week. I was very uncomfortable hiking. Yeah, hiking was not fun with hemorrhoids. No, 0 out of 10, wouldn't recommend. But yeah, so I'm more careful. Again, another reason why, with my doctor's advice, we add in a stool softener when things are not passing all that easy, because I do not want to get hemorrhoids again. Moving on, number 3, farting. Okay, so going into the surgery, I'd read a lot about, you know, just passing gas and people saying that it just comes out without warning and you can't control it. And I was like, oh, that's going to be terrible. It hasn't been that bad for me. It hasn't been, like, I haven't had any uncontrollable gas passing at all. Like, yeah, it hasn't been as bad as I had anticipated it being. Still, you know, I do get a little gassy sometimes, and that's not great. Especially if I eat like a lot of dairy. So I have yogurt every morning for breakfast. And then some days I'll have another yogurt later in the day. If that second yogurt though, like I need to make sure I'm going to be at home, because that second yogurt causes some stuff. And you know, in the past, you could just, you know, I could just let a little gas go and no one would be the wiser. Not anymore. These are silent but deadly. My sister's poor dogs, I blame a lot of stuff on them. But I've only done it a couple of times. But yeah, they're not pleasant when they happen. So I make sure, or I, try my best to make it to a restroom before I need to pass gas. And if things are really acting up, I take Gas X. And then, but if I'm just mindful of what I'm eating, usually it's fine and controllable. And if I'm drinking plenty of water, it's not as bad. Okay, the fourth embarrassing thing is burping. And I think I've mentioned this in other videos. When I start to get full, my cue is that I start to burp a lot. So, I know some people who haven't had gastric bypass surgery and their body sends them certain clues when they are getting full. Like I have a friend who will just start sneezing like crazy when she's, halfway through her lunch and she's like, okay, I'm getting full. And she's very thin and hasn't had surgery or anything. It's just sometimes our bodies tell us stuff. But I think after gastric bypass surgery, or just any gastric or bariatric surgery, a lot of people develop these clues or these cues from their body to let them know that they're becoming full. Some people, like their nose will start to run. Some people will sneeze. Other people will just get, intense pains. I'm glad that hadn't happened to me. But what I get is burping. And it's like compulsive, frequent burps that I can't control. And they're like, they're kind of like hiccups. But I've kind of gotten used to them. And so like on New Year's Eve, I went out to dinner with my sister and my brother-in-law. And my brother-in-law suddenly looks at me and he goes, excuse you. And I didn't even realize that I had just been burping up a storm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My sister was kind of seated a little bit off to the side from us. So it was like me and my brother-in-law was here. My sister was a little over. And she said she didn't hear anything. So I don't think the whole restaurant heard. But man, I was so mortified. So I just need to be a little more mindful of that. But when I start burping and realize that I'm burping, I tell myself, okay, just don't eat for a few minutes. Just see if you really are still hungry. Because usually the burping will start and I haven't really, I still feel hungry. So I'll give myself a few minutes and then yes, sometimes the fullness, feeling does creep up and I'm like, okay, I really was full. Or sometimes I am still a little hungry. So I'll eat another bite. I just take it slower. Number 5, my breath. So I am aware that my breath does not smell great these days. I'm very, very mindful of my oral health. So like I brush my teeth multiple times a day. I floss multiple times a day. I use a tongue scraper every night. I was eating a lot of mints, but I think those were just exacerbating the problem. And they started to give me canker sores, so I don't use breath mints much anymore. But my mouth is just always dry, even though I'm drinking like 100 ounces of water a day. So I think it's just that dryness that's creating smell. I don't know, like I've asked people, does my breath smell? And they tell me no, but I don't know. I have really nice friends and family, so I don't know if they're telling me the truth. But anyway, it just I can taste it. Like it just doesn't taste great. So anyway, I don't know what else I can be doing on this for this situation, but yeah. Another embarrassing moment, I think we're on number 6, body odor. And this might just be because I am a lot more active these days, but I swear that I overpower my deodorant a lot more after the surgery. And again, it's probably because I am more active and I'm sweating more these days. Or, maybe it's because I'm eating a lot more protein. I was reading a Reddit post once before surgery when I was researching surgery. Somebody had posted a question asking, saying, I'm considering having gastric bypass surgery. Anything I should be aware of? And it wasn't posted to the gastric bypass subreddit. It was posted somewhere else. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, somebody had commented, don't have the surgery because people will always be able to tell. And somebody was like, what do you mean? And they responded, because people who have gastric bypass surgery always smell like sweet farts. So I have that in my mind. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if I smell like sweet farts. But I do know that I can smell my own BO a lot more. Since surgery. Again, it might just be because I'm more active or it might be my diet, but it is something that I am really cognizant of, and so I make sure that I'm always applying deodorant and I wear perfume a lot more these days than before surgery. Okay, number 7, bloating. So I do find myself getting bloated a lot. Bloating that doesn't like beget farts. That makes sense. Like I do, like my tummy will look distended after I eat certain foods. Dairy again, and then sometimes like tofu or beans, foods like that. And it will look like I have a food baby. And sometimes it's a little embarrassing because I'll, put on jeans and then I have a muffin top sometimes. And not all the time, but on those bloated days. So, I just have to focus on drinking plenty of water, watching myself around those problematic foods. Oh, raw veggies. Raw veggies are another culprit. And onions. Onions make me really gassy these days. Okay, so the 8th embarrassing thing on my list, and I think this is the last of like the body functions ones, and that is vomiting. So another thing that I read about a lot before surgery was that, people eat one bite too much and it just comes back out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be throwing up all the time. Hasn't really been an issue except for one time. I was at work and I was at my part-time job and we get like 5 minutes to eat. And so I was just shoving food in my face. That was the problem. I was eating way too fast. But I ate these cocktail shrimp and I had 2 of them and then I was halfway through the 3rd one and it needed to come back up. So, I was like, and I was in with a bunch of people, so I was just like, oh, excuse me, I'll be right back, and ran to the bathroom, public restroom. Ugh, that was really embarrassing. I did not eat that quickly again after that. Lesson learned. Yeah, so I'm grateful that vomiting hasn't been that much of an issue for me. That one time was embarrassment enough. But I think the key is just to eat more slowly and to listen to your body cues. Okay, so number 9 on my list of embarrassing things, hair loss. So I think the hair loss is just an inevitability with weight loss surgery. It's a major surgery and your body is quickly losing nutrition. So I think, you just need to accept it. I would estimate about 60% of my hair. I had really thick hair. It's come back. I don't know if it's standing up yet. I've hairsprayed the heck out of my hair today, but I have like this cowlick now that stands straight up, these new hairs. But yeah, so hair loss, it was bad for about the first 9 months. And lost, like I said, about 60% of my hair. It was really embarrassing because I would go to, I went to my friend's house and I sat on her couch with her and we were talking, and then I stood up to leave and there was all this hair that had fallen off of me on her couch. And it was just like, oh, sorry, let me pick up all my strands of hair. It was just really embarrassing. And then, I'll be out in public and people would pick stray hairs off me and they'd be like, wow, you have a lot of hairs hanging off of you. Yeah, sorry, losing my hair. And then, I did develop some balding, and that was embarrassing. I was considering getting, wigs at one point. But yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. Number 10, my loose and saggy skin can be embarrassing. I was just on my treadmill jogging, so I wasn't around other people, but I looked down at my arms, were pumping, and I looked and just this little flap by my elbow was just like, it was just bouncing around, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been out in public jogging too. And I bet people can see that, and it just looks really odd. But I have a lot more wrinkles now. I am getting older, funny, right? That tends to happen to everybody. But I think the majority of my wrinkles are because I don't have, nature's fat filler in there anymore. And it is a little, I don't know, aging shouldn't be embarrassing, I guess. Wrinkles shouldn't be embarrassing, but I am a little embarrassed by how wrinkly, my chin, my neck is. And just, yeah, I'll be going on vacations or, my travels here shortly. And first stop are some cruises, and I'm going to be wearing swimsuits, I'm sure. And it'll take a little bit to get over the embarrassment of what my body now looks like, all the saggy skin. And then I do have, a lot of lumps under my clothes. Like right now, you can't see it, but I have a lump where my stomach is, but it's just because I'm sitting and that's where the loose skin is accumulating. But yeah, if you haven't checked out, I did a surgery about what happened when I went and talked to the plastic surgeon about some options to correct some of this loose, saggy skin. I'm not going to be pursuing plastic surgery at this time, but I mean, you know, that's an option that I have available to me in the future. But yeah, I think my biggest, the biggest thing that I can do is just get over myself and just live my life and not care if, you know, people are thinking my skin looks weird. So I think we're on number 11, and that is my now complex medical history. I don't know, other people might not find this embarrassing, but working in the medical field, I'm going to tell you a secret about medical care providers. If they see a person's chart with a lot of allergies, a lot of past medical history, there is a certain prejudice that sneaks in. And I've worked with providers who will be like, oh my gosh, this patient I'm about to go see has 10 allergies. You know how this visit's going to go. And I don't like that that's a thing, but it is a thing. And I already have a lot of allergies because I'm allergic to a lot of antibiotics, like legitimate allergies. But now my list is even longer because now my allergy or contraindication list now has NSAIDs on there as well as steroids. And like I went to a doctor about some shoulder pain and he was like, just take some ibuprofen. I was like, I can't take ibuprofen. Then he was like, ugh. You know, I'm trying to think, he's like, well, how about naproxen? I'm like, that's also an NSAID. I shouldn't have to tell you that. You know, it's kind of embarrassing that simple fixes like NSAIDs can no longer help me because I can't take them. And like I said, you might not find that embarrassing, but I find it embarrassing to now have to be this medically complicated patient. Okay, another really embarrassing thing, and I know it's just in my mind, and I try really hard to work on this, but I do feel, you know, bariatric surgery is seen as the easy way out. And while I do not think there's been anything easy about this, like this has been a rough road, I can't help but sometimes feel like maybe I took the easy way out. I don't know. So I do sometimes get embarrassed, like, you know, I was talking to a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time, and this friend is very active and fit. And they were so excited to see me that I had lost so much weight. And they were like, oh my gosh, how did you do it? And I was like, oh, I had weight loss surgery. I don't know. I was really embarrassed about it. But I'm trying not to feel that way because I know that I put in a lot of work and I'm still like, and now I still put in a lot of work. Like now I'm very focused on my diet. I'm very focused on making sure I get exercise. You know, I'm not just laying around on the couch and letting the pounds melt off. Like I'm putting in the work. But I still get kind of embarrassed admitting that I went this route. Again, trying not to because it was the right decision for me and I'm so glad I did it. But I don't know, that embarrassment is still there. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is I get embarrassed when other people are commenting on my eating. So either way, like I've been at restaurants and like the servers come up and been like, oh, is something wrong with your meal? Why aren't you eating? And it's like, oh, I can't eat that much. Can I just get a to-go box? And you know, but it's just kind of embarrassing that they're like calling out the fact that I'm not eating. Or, you know, I've been at work functions and people are like, oh my gosh, look at your plate. There's hardly any food on it. And I'm just like, yeah, can't eat that much now. And I know they're not like trying to be rude or anything. That's not it at all. It's just, I don't know, sometimes I just want to be normal, right? And just eat with everybody else. And sometimes it's a little embarrassing to think about my limitations. But then on the flip side, I've also had people comment to me, like they've seen my plate and they'll be like, oh my gosh, you can eat all that food after that surgery? And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm going to eat until I can't and then I'll stop. I probably can't eat all, but I don't know. Maybe today is one of those days where I can eat more than usual. Like, stop commenting on it. And then that will be really embarrassing and I'll feel like I'm failing and I'm going to put on all the weight again. And I've had that happen several times. You know, it's happened in other situations when I've been out to eat with friends and, you know, they bring me the normal entree because, I mean, they don't have like a bariatric entree you can order. They bring me the normal entree and, you know, they'll be like, oh my gosh, you'll never be able to eat all of that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to, but now I'm like feeling like I can only eat a very small amount. And what if, you know, today is one of those weird days where, and you have them after you've had bariatric surgery, you have those days where you feel like a bottomless pit and you can eat a lot of food. And, you know, what if it is one of those foods? And then, you know, the whole meal I'm worried about looking like I can only eat a certain amount, even, and, you know, and there have been times where I have left hungry because I didn't want to eat more than they thought I could eat. Again, it's just in my mind, but it's still embarrassing. So that was my list of 13 things that have embarrassed me after having gastric bypass surgery. Again, I hope that maybe this video brought a little levity. Go ahead, laugh at me, that's fine. I laugh at myself all the time. But also I hope that it was a little helpful, and for those of you who are maybe early in the process or just thinking about having the surgery, so that you can maybe see what there is to expect. Overall, a lot less embarrassing things than I thought that I would encounter. I've encountered some things that I never even thought about before having the surgery. But yeah, overall, I still think that this surgery was the best thing for my situation. Yours may be different, so of course, take all of this information into account before you make the decision. But let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.